Hey, Davis, how's it going?
Hello.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Xander.
Peter, when do you get into Amsterdam?
I get in on Saturday. So I think that's the 16th. Yeah, I think that's 16th. Leave on Friday, arrive on Saturday. Are you doing rejects?
I don't know, actually. I haven't done it in the past. I might this time. Usually there's some conflict with the contributor summit, but I think this time the contributor summit is a day later than it normally is. So I probably should try to make it to rejects.
Yeah, I just bought my ticket yesterday. Maybe I don't know. But I just bought my ticket because I was like, I don't think I have any conflict. So it'll be fun just to hang out on Sunday with like, I'm not doing a talk, so just like, oh yeah, just here.
Yeah.
Hey,
I'm the current release lead for Kubernetes 127, and we release next Tuesday, the 11th. And so we're doing the webinar for the release for CNCF on Friday. So it's going to be like webinar, like immediately leave for the airport and hop on a plane, like super chaotic week next week.
I feel like anyone who's involved with KubeCon says the same, where it's just like, well, I have this thing and this thing, but we're also trying to squeeze in this thing and this thing.
Yep.
Hey, Sartek.
Hello.
Hey, Alan, I don't know if you're seeing my chat in the Zoom call. Do you want to add your sync design to the agenda?
Yeah, for sure. I think Joey was planning on doing.
Do you know where the agenda is?
I can add it.
Let me put it here.
Is it Nalik? I feel like you're the only face I haven't seen before, but I'm sparsely on these meetings though, so hey,
Yes.
good to meet you.
Nilek.
Is that
Nice to meet you.
Is that a Nalik? Say it one more time.
Nileka.
Nileka. Okay, got it. Is that a rendered background or is that a?
I wish it's not a render background, to be honest, but it's a virtual background.
Well, but what's the spacecraft?
It's
Is that like? Is it?
It's an
like
Artemis. No, it's an Artemis
okay.
space. Yeah, so it's like the next spacecraft that will take humans to the moon.
Yeah, part of the
Actually
SLS
announced
program. Yeah.
Correct. They actually announced a crew that will go and do the roundabout around the moon as Artemis 2.
Let me ping Max real quick.
Yeah, I feel like he's the one that normally kicks things off.
I think he might be busy. He was having some electrical work done at his house that might be going over.
Well, while we wait, I guess Charlie and I did the recording for the project update for KubeCon.
Oh, nice.
We do not sound like Chipmunk this time.
I thought that was pretty funny.
You didn't have to like fast.
No, in fact, the conference people actually say, don't do that. Like, don't change the
So-
speed.
I mean,
So we made
I
a new
definitely
goal.
did that like significantly. Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious.
I like the Chipmunk better, actually.
It's
I think
very
I sound
stressful.
better
Like
as
you
a
have to
Chipmunk.
record it, and it has to be like a 10 minutes or whatever it is, and then
No,
you
it's like
have
45 seconds, right?
Yeah, 45 seconds.
Right. So we were at like 49 seconds, and it was just like, I don't want to re-record this for 4 seconds. Like, let's just speed it up.
I mean, I also did that for like a longer talks for like half an hour, right? And
Mhm.
then you're like, I don't know, a few minutes over, you just shrink it all down.
Yeah, it's fine.
You
You have
do
too
something
much to
you
share.
probably.
Right. I feel like half the engineers who watch this stuff online anyway watch it all at 2x, so they won't even
Yeah.
notice the difference.
No, now it's 4x.
4x, yeah.
There's a 10x engineer joke in there somewhere.
Mm, thanks. Standard, do you want to show the website real quick?
I can. I actually do have
It's a
the
good filler.
dev server running.
Also, we have so many people on the call today. What's up?
I don't know. Maybe everyone's getting like the like pre-KubeCon. You know what? I'm gonna slack off and join more meetings. Feeling.
I feel flattered that I want to discuss something and so many people showed up. Thank you.
All for you, Nilika.
All for you, yeah.
Thanks.
Like keeping the full view open when I screen share, but it's whatever. Okay, yeah, here's what I have so far based on Max's feedback. We have the little actual like cloud logo swapped out for the official Google Cloud logo here. We're still waiting on confirmation from Max on like what logo Google's gonna want here. I think they do have like, you know, the like text is the official logo, but like with this setup, it's definitely better for us to have like a little icon rather than a full. I don't even actually know if I'm supposed to be using this Azure logo. I didn't ask anyone, but it's the app, like the iOS app logo, so it seems fine to me. I don't know, whatever. If someone's mad, they can tell me about it and I'll change it. But yeah, this is what we have at the moment. PR is open for discussion. So once we get the logo stuff finalized, we should be good to go. I know Sertaj mentioned at some point having like a testimonial section, which we can certainly do. But yeah, I think it's gives us a solid kickoff point.
Yeah, looks great. Do those link to places?
These all do link to the mentioned services.
Okay, awesome. Yay.
Is this replacing like the GitHub IO page? Is that where this is going, or?
No, it's actually, so that is running on Docusaurus, which has a landing page functionality. So this is the same website. It's just the landing page used to redirect to the docs
Yes.
page, but now we actually have an index.html. And
Ah,
then,
so it's like the front page to what already exists. I got you.
Yep. Yeah, I initially, when I started playing with it, was looking at like something we could deploy on Netlify, but like, yeah, we can just do it all with Docusaurus here.
Cool. Looks good.
Yeah, looks good, looks great. Do we want to redirect gatekeeper.sh to this too?
I think that would be good.
I don't know who owns it.
That would be really good. I have an email with CNCF about gatekeeper.sh. In the past, we wanted that to point to the GitHub repo.
It does go to GitHub repo today. Yeah.
What?
It does go to GitHub repo today.
Oh, sorry. We wanted to point to the website instead.
Oh.
But with this, maybe.
Oh, then yeah. If we can have that, then this will be the same thing. If it can go to the open policy agent.github.io/gatekeeper, that yeah, this is going to be that.
I see. Right. So we still want to make that change, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I need to dig up that email. It's buried like 3 years now.
So does CNCF own that domain?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
I think someone like donated. I think it's called, I think it's the people who own the name Gatekeeper in the past. I had a question, and I don't know how we feel about this, but like, you know how some of the Red Hat folks contributed for the mutation feature, right? Do we want to add them here too? And if so, should we tag them in the PR?
I think I had them and VMware as potential ads in the contributor section. What I have now are just the like logos that I for sure have the permission to use. But I think, yeah, VMware and Red Hat were also like, I haven't reached out to those folks yet, but it's in my like list of, and then I probably need to like find someone who actually knows what the hell they're doing with CSS to make the contributors like scroll, because I don't think we'd be able to fit 1 or 2 more on there. I tried it with 5 and it looked weird. So
Would it be helpful to tag the contributors from Red Hat to see?
Yeah,
what
probably.
they think? Okay.
But I would say, can we get this out first? Otherwise, we'll
Sure,
be stuck
sure.
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to get it out before KubeCon.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a block or anything. I was just curious what y'all thought. And I think Alex has his hand up.
Hey, yeah, just building on some of your questions, I was out a little bit for travel. So is the purpose of this website just to be ready for KubeCon?
Not necessarily. It's really just giving us a nicer landing page. Like when you like look up Caverno, you're taken to like a really like nice looking and inviting page. And we don't, what we've had in the past is just kind of like it just slaps you right into the like verbose documentation page. So it's really just to give a pleasing looking landing page.
Cool. Yeah, no, I like it. Because I like seeing, I like having this for new folks that are looking at Gatekeeper.
We also wanted to start like steering more people towards the policy library. And so like making that a little more prominent than it's been in the previous docs page, I think will be a benefit.
Cool.
Yeah, we were joking. We need like a Blink HTML.
All right, I will stop sharing. Yeah, PR is open on the repo. Feel free to comment away.
All right, should we get started? Load test.
Cool. Okay. So I've been trying to do a load test for Gatekeeper, and I think one of the first scenarios that I think I started off with is like, how does the sync affects the memory consumption of the controller manager pod and the audit pod? So I did some initial runs and I'll post the result, but then my idea here is to just sort of bring this up with the community and then try to see what other things, and if you have any other ideas as to what we should test as a part of this exercise. With that, so like the way I was thinking, or we are trying to do that is like, if we can spin up a large cluster with some different level of or the number of namespaces and pods that we can create, and then try to see the memory consumption. So we have like formulated like a certain questions that we want to get the answers. So I'm trying to test against like these set of questions basically. And I have like an initial result that I will also post here so that we, I don't know how it's going to format, but hopefully, okay. Okay, I'm not sure how is that getting formatted or okay, but then the idea is the way I've tested it is like I've created a large cluster with 550 nodes and installed the Gatekeeper on top of it. And to test the sync, I have pre-created a certain amount of namespaces and then run a cluster loader with it, which again creates, let's say, the same number of pods in each of the namespaces. So for example, if I'm testing with 1K namespaces, then 1K namespaces and 1K pods, then I create the 1K namespaces first. I sync them, make sure that sync is correctly happened, like all the 1K namespaces have been synced, and then ask cluster loader to create a 1K pod, which gets created in its own namespaces. So like there are like total 2K namespace that we create as a part of this test. And the same thing goes with 10K namespace with 10K pods and 20K namespace with 20K pods. So I still yet to achieve 20K namespaces with 20K pods. That test is still going on, but I was able to get 10K namespaces pre-created, synced, and I ran that alongside a 20K pod, so like around 30K namespaces in the total run. So that gives us like a very good idea as to what are our upper bound memory limits for both audit and the Gatekeeper pod basically. And this is and the result that I have posted is just for like one constraint template and one constraint basically. So I think the next thing that I'm going to test with is like if we can do the similar run with let's say 20 constraint templates. So these are the initial thoughts and initial results. So I'm just curious, like what do you all think, or what other way we should test? Alex, yes.
Hey, so I think this is super cool. Thanks for sharing these. What's the end goal that you or we're trying to achieve?
All right. I think I mean I'll try to answer, but Anlan, please add something if I miss. And what we are trying to do here is we are trying to figure it out, like in a real world scenario, like if certain number of resources are created, how is our Gatekeeper pods are behaving, or how the in general our resource requirements are, and that could vary with the different scenarios. So sync is one of the scenarios. So like if we are trying to sync certain number of resources and these many pods, if the customers are creating, then how the Gatekeeper will hold against those scenarios. So we are starting with sync, and that to sync with namespaces. And I forgot to mention, but we'll probably also go on with the different kinds of resources like pods maybe, and we'll probably do some kind of a combination in there. So like pods and namespaces, for example, and things like that. That makes sense?
Yeah, for sure. I think like for because I like benchmarking things, and like having an idea of your hard limits or whatnot. Stating the setup is important. Like when we reach the end state, like here's how we deploy gatekeepers, here's what's turned on and what's turned off, um, things like that. And yeah, I'm excited for you to go to like 20K namespaces and see pods in as well. I think that would be cool. Um, and we know that there's a section of folks that have more than one constraint template. So like seeing that as a variable is interesting too. Yeah. Sorry, whenever I talk, my dogs go crazy. So it's what happens.
I am glad I inspired one more person. But yeah, but correct. So, and I'll publish this results as well as part of our OSS repo somewhere on the website or somewhere, because I don't believe we have that. So like the general community will also be aware as to, you know, how much they can do and things like that.
Just a question about the tests. So did you just create a bunch of these resources and just record the time for them to be synced? Or was there anything that kind of investigated if we modify these resources, like what does the steady state look like? You know, like if we have n namespaces and we add a label to each one, what impact does that have? That might be something
Right.
interesting to look at.
Correct. So the factors like this could be like there can be like multiple factors, but the way we did it is we are using cluster loader tool to determine. So it gives us like this latency. I mean, not latency, the percentile distribution. But I'm not sure exactly like whether creating a label or something like would differ the result, but definitely the number of resources or the type of resources that we create might change the result. And that's where we are coming or trying to do it like the backwards way, or meaning like try to figure it out what's the likely scenario that users are using this with, and then try to replicate those scenarios in like this large clustered framework kind of. But the other underlying principle is like I'm trying to keep as many parameters stable as I can. So for example, like the cluster that I'm creating for each of these is like the same. So it's like the same exact configuration that I spin up for all these tests. Then the cluster loader tool itself has like a many different configurations, like the parallelism, the timeout, and the type of resource that we create and whatnot. So all these things are pretty much constant, and just one test case I'm trying to sort of measure against. And in this particular case, that's like a how does this syncing of namespace affects the creation of a certain number of pods, basically.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess what I'm just looking to call out is it looks like this is just measuring bootstrap time, which I think is a very good proxy for like the resource consumption when it's actually steady state running. But I don't know if those will be one for one. You know what I mean?
What do you mean by bootstrap time? I didn't get it.
Well, let's say you create 10,000 namespaces. That's the
Mhm.
kind of bootstrapping I'm talking about. And then the rest of the time is editing those namespaces or deleting them.
No, so the
I don't know
way
if the edit
it
and
is.
the create is like going to cost the same, is what I'm saying.
Okay, so just to sort of clarify here, in this example, like if I'm testing with 10K namespaces and 10K pods, then I'm pre-creating 10K namespaces and syncing them just to make sure that I have like a large number of namespaces synced. Then when
Yeah.
cluster loader tries to create the 10K pods, it doesn't create in those namespaces. It spins up another namespace as one per each pod, and then it creates, deletes, and things like that.
Oh,
So
I see.
correct. So in this particular example, the total namespaces is like 20K for that particular run.
Cool. Yeah, I'm interested to see all the data. Thank you for doing this.
is there any different dimension do you guys think I should be testing, or is there any another thing? I don't know, like that would be cool.
One thing that comes to mind is you can look at some of the metrics too, instead of just looking at the pod footprints.
What kind of metrics? So I'm already looking at memory. Is there any other metrics do you think might be good for us to record?
Do you mean the gatekeeper metrics, Davis?
Yeah.
Maybe a request duration.
Sorry, which duration?
Request duration.
Request duration. Okay, I'll filter it.
But definitely like the difference between sync versus not sync is really important to me. I want to understand. I want to understand how much impact that has on the overall footprint of the webhook pod and the audit pod.
In terms of like if you're syncing a large amount of data?
Yep. I mean, that's an obvious reason why we're doing this. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I just joined. I don't have much context. I know it's load testing.
Yeah, so I just pasted there the first initial run. So like I try to sync like large number of namespaces, like 10K or 20K namespaces first, and then ran a cluster loader to create, let's say, 10K pods in a separate namespace, not those pre-created namespaces. And then did like a couple combinations and have a result. Try to see like what's the memory consumption for like our gatekeeper and the audit purpose.
Gotcha.
Coming back to what I was saying about the duration, the request duration, I think that's only impacted if your rego is actually looking at the data that you're syncing. So let's say you look for uniqueness or something, like assuming you're replicating like a lot of ingress resources, right? Then I wonder how that impacts the query, the rule, I guess, and how that impacts the overall request time. That makes sense?
I mean, more resources means more RAM, right? And it also means if you have policies that cover those resources, the compute is going to take longer.
Yeah. I want to know how much.
Yeah. And do you have any assumptions about the like shape of the policies? Because just the logic itself, barring the language, if it's like looking up a struct, like a value in a struct, it could be like constant time lookup. Whereas if you're iterating over keys in a list, right, it's n, and then you could go n squared, right? If you're comparing all elements in the list with all other elements in the list. So do you have an idea of like the kinds of logic you want to support there? Because it's unbounded in theory.
Right, it totally depends on the policy, like the rego you're writing. One I can think of is just the unique ingress hostname one, because it's like a that's what we always point to when we talk about referential. So it would just be good to have that kind of numbers for people so that they can sort of have an idea of, if I were to add this type of policy in my cluster, here's the impact, right? And I know some folks have asked for performance numbers before to be published in as part of the repo. So I think this is gonna help us with that as well.
Do we care for a specific like policy? Like, does anybody have any strong opinions about the policy we should run with this?
Well, if we care about referential data, obviously a policy that uses referential data. And I think we want to have two, I personally would be interested in two different shapes, right? One where we're looking up just one bit of data in a large data set, right? Just because one, I would hope that that lookup, you know, the complexity doesn't scale with the size of the data set. I would hope it'd be constant time. And then another one that's linear. If you're starting to get into quadratic though, I think scaling is kind of a lost cause at that point. Certainly cubic. Quadratic, I suppose if it's fast enough and you could get like fairly large cluster sizes without it going to ridiculously long run times. Memory scaling in quadratic would certainly be interesting, right? Because you would hope that actually there wouldn't be any, or at least not much memory scaling with the size of the data set there.
Well, did you get what you needed, Like?
Go ahead.
Yes,
Did I sorry, that was a question for Neela. Did you get what you needed?
right.
Okay. Shall
Yeah,
we?
I think so.
I guess one more question is, should we test this with like how many policies should we test this with?
Yeah, I was gonna ask like if there any specific policy from the library that do you guys think we should test with?
Yeah, I think we should be more prescriptive so like people can replicate it if they wanted to.
Well, I think we've ran perf tests before, so I would like to use the same number. That way it's apple to apple. So I think Sertash, you did like 10,000 pods before, right? Or
Yeah, I
20,000.
think there was a number of different constraint templates. I don't remember, I can't dig it up, but it was like
Right.
like one and then 20 constraints, sorry, 20 templates, one constraint each. I don't know, 50 constraint templates with, I don't know, 50 constraints and whatnot. Do we care for like that large number of policies, or do we want to like just keep it small, or and then obviously that was not using the referential ones. This one is going to be different.
I would. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say there. I would assume we want to use similar test parameters for the non-sync stuff, and then that way we can see apple to apple, and then add a referential policy for the referential stuff.
Is this is the purpose of this to give users guidance, or is the purpose of this to check for performance regressions?
I think most of it is the guidance side. But
Okay.
if we do this like recurringly, then obviously we can check for regressions. But I think the last time we did this one was like Gatekeeper 3.6 or something like that. It was like so long ago. So and then things obviously changed.
Yeah, and okay, there then I would say most important would be to have scaling, right, where you can get a sense of the shape of the relationship, right? A good example of this would be that bug that Brian Kennedy had against the constraint framework a while back, where he's like, hey, compile time scales quadratically with the number of templates. Because if I'm a user, right, I could see a data point, right, but I don't necessarily know how that maps to my situation unless I can extrapolate, right? And to extrapolate, you need to get a sense of the shape of the curve. So to my mind, that means like figure out the salient vectors, cache size, number of templates, number of constraints, vary one of those variables, you know, find a value at some midpoint, some min and some max, maybe a couple more values for each of those dimensions. And then users can hopefully at least get a rule of thumb, right? It's never going to be completely accurate, right? Because they'll be using different hardware. But if they can, for instance, replicate, you know, oh, this is what it looks like with 50 templates and blah, blah, blah. And they can replicate that value for their infrastructure, and they can level set there and then extrapolate out for how large of a cluster they want to accommodate. I think that would give fairly good guidance. And in terms of like relevant variables, I think the hardest thing here is, yeah, the template. And so for that, honestly, I would tend to like just lean toward reproducibility, right? So have something that doesn't require a lot of setup in order to run the performance test, right? So like an example is if you run a lot of Nginx pods, that's going to like require a lot of compute to run those pods potentially, right? So do referential checks with config maps or whatever is cheap. And then say, well, that gives you some sense, and you can scale with the number of templates, but you really need to test with your specific template code, right? If you want to take this curve and extrapolate.
No preferred template though, right?
Well, because users are going to be interested in their whatever template they want to use, right? I would expect that there will be like a popular referential data template. I don't know what that one would be off the top of my head. And if it's easy enough to test, you know, do load testing with the types that template covers, then great. But if it's not, then I would lean toward ease of use. Go ahead.
Yeah, perhaps like the ingress
I can.
Was that?
Sorry.
I was just going to say perhaps the ingress one.
Yeah, something like that. If ingresses are easy enough to like create, and it doesn't matter that there's no backing service necessarily. Ingress has an issue of like running that load test might require exposing network access to your cluster. I don't know how people feel about that.
It's just the object.
The ingress, well, it configures a load balancer under the hood, right? Or however the K8s provider is wired up ingresses.
But I don't think you need it. I think you just need the object, the ingress object. Like you don't need to actually run it.
Right. My thought was the mere act of creating the ingress might have an impact on the cluster's network.
Oh, I don't think so, but we can double check.
Okay.
You know what? We have Google Analytics on the library. I can just take a look at it, like which one is most visited. I can try to test with that.
Yeah. And again, I think there's also this n squared versus constant thing, and that's I think more where coverage is important, right? Because there could be very different scaling profiles depending on the underlying code complexity. It's never going to be perfect. We just need something that users can map to. I do agree that realistic is good, but if the only realistic ones we have are of size n, right? Or sorry, realistic and popular is good, but if they only like go ON scaling, then I'm missing the O1 like external data reference.
I think we have enough. I don't think we need to over engineer this. Like, I think we definitely have enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Alex?
Alex has had a hand up for a while. Sorry, Alex.
Oh yeah, no worries. No, just a final thought. I think like we've given some direction of like, oh, what constraints we should use and whatnot, and we've talked about like reproducibility, OBQs. Before we publish this to the world, if one of us could reproduce and see that we're getting roughly the same numbers for what we're saying, just like a useful exercise, I think.
Again, it would be same shape, not same numbers, right? Because you have different infrastructure.
Sure. Yeah.
But I guess it's good to see if we have like the same magnitude of diff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the same scaling curve.
Yeah, to validate the guidance, right?
Yeah.
I believe this somebody also asked for this to help them with the memory limits that they can set on their pods, right? So this is also helpful with that. Cool. Anything else about this? I just trying to keep us moving. We have a few items on the agenda. Everyone good? Moving on?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, next, Xander, high-level roadmap chat.
Yeah, there's definitely a question mark at the end of this because it's not something we have to do right now, but we can. I think, I mentioned like milestone planning last time around, and I think like a good place to start, rather than like going through all of the issues and trying to get things like tagged to milestones and such, would be to like think about the next like 2 to 3 minor versions and what our like big rock items are for each of those 2 to 3 minor versions. I did just like whip up like a pure guess draft of like what that could look like. So I'll just show that real quick. So like the items on here might be completely wrong, but I just wanted to kind of like get started on something that like, as we start to think about the next couple versions, like what are some of our more like user facing items that we're working on. So I know 3.12 is already out the door. So these were in 3.12, but as we look at 3.13, like, are we planning on including like pub sub and response caching, and the multi-engine support, I think, is there, if I recall, or maybe the PR is just open.
It's in the constraint framework. Kind of be invisible at the gatekeeper level. Like there's no other engine that users can use right now.
Okay. So I'm gonna actually get rid of that since it's not entirely user facing. But I guess these things don't have to be user facing. I just like, what do we consider like kind of the hallmark 2 to 3 things that we're thinking about as we approach the next couple minor versions? And I know response caching and pub sub are 2 biggies. Just anecdotally, like, in my time chatting with users, like the number one thing I hear for sure is like, can I use anything but Rego? So I know that like that's that's definitely there, which is why I think I threw the like Starlark support, because I've written Starlark before and it's interesting. Yeah, maybe I'll stop talking now.
I think I would like to see cell integration. I know Max will love to see that as well. And since
I think we can add the multi-engine to 312 Xander too. And then follow up with the cell one on 313. Or
isn't that already in 12?
yeah, that's why I said 312.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, you scare me. Because I did tweet about that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
I know. I was like, wait, did I miss something?
So, sorry.
Sorry, can you change it to cell integration, maybe?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, okay. What is, I can tell you what I hear when I hear integration, because there's sort of two halves to the cell work, right? There's one where Gatekeeper is running cell in process, and there's another half to the work where Gatekeeper is a controller that translates constraint templates to cell cap primitives on the cluster, right? For me, integration is either that second one or the whole package. That's how I think about it. Was that what you were thinking?
I was thinking more have Gatekeeper as the front end and be able to support both Rego and cell policies.
Okay, so like a cell cap. I would call that cell cap engine. I don't want to like.
I mean,
Yeah.
cell cap is like so Kubernetes specific. Like if you want to maybe like validating a mission policy, like because that's what users
Yeah,
like
engine.
users know. Like no one understands cell cap except us.
Okay,
Just-
yeah, it could be
Yeah.
a VAP engine.
A what?
VAP
VAP?
engine.
Oh,
VAP.
VAP. Okay, sure.
Vapid. No. Okay, but that's what you mean. You mean like running it in the local process. Okay.
Right. Because I think I think that's the divergence people are seeing in the community with the introduction of cell in 126, right? So I think it would be good for us to dedicate some time to work on this in 113.
Yeah. I think the biggest risk here is design risk. In terms of if we want to just throw something out there that works, that's probably not actually that hard to do at this point. But I think we also want to think through, the implications of the various API choices. One way around that I could think of is we could just name the engine like an alpha engine and tell people this is to play with, it's going away. If we wanted to have a user-facing deliverable. I'm curious people's thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's great because then we get feedback right away instead of like waiting and trying to get a perfect thing.
It's what we did with external data and Gator and stuff too, right? Like classifying those as like alpha and then beta. I think that's, seems great to me.
Yeah, the sort of behavioral risk here is unlike the external data stuff where we were just relying on the Kubernetes like KRM versioning because they were separate objects. We don't have the same thing here. So it's like a fairly strong likelihood that if we do alpha and then we change our minds, like even if we don't change our minds, even if we just rename it to beta, we probably any template that was written for the alpha flavor would need to be rewritten to work with the new thing.
I think it's fair to say to users that as long as we continue to call the engine alpha, like it is liable to have breaking changes, like, and we can use that time to solicit feedback and like kind of finalize the design before we call it beta.
Okay, yeah, because we've been pretty good about like seamless stuff before, I think. So I just wanted to call out that difference. Cool.
Do we think PubSub, external data, and cell are, do we think we can land all three of those for 313, or would one slip to 314? I know that all three of those are kind of probably already in flight to some degree, so.
What's the timeline for these? We should know this, but I think like once a
3
month.
months. 3 months.
3 months per major release, so
Minor,
313 is
minor,
3 months
minor.
away, or minor
Minor.
release.
Don't freak
my
people out.
You guys are 2 months. I actually should know this.
I think it's 3 months, right? Because our last one was like December and now we're in April. So it's every 3 months.
Well, if it's not like documented in the README or something.
It
I mean,
is, it is.
It is.
Let me send you the exact thing we said.
I was like, this is the time
two
to say, like,
months,
we can
basically.
definitively say what we want to do.
It's 2 months.
Okay, it's 2 months, but we're actually doing 3 months. So we can change it, we can update the doc to reflect
Okay.
reality.
Yeah, I
Perfect.
think last one we said we are waiting for some stuff, and then that's why it got delayed.
So 312 was March, right?
Well, April, we don't have 12 yet. It's RC.
Oh, sorry. I thought 12 had landed
worries.
already.
It's 2023, not a big deal, but just wanted to say that.
That's so funny. Yeah, I think sync should be there too. And Alex said stats as well.
Sorry, what?
Stats.
Under 313, I would call this like loggable stats from the constraint framework or something like that.
Like performance stats
Sure.
kind of stuff, which is a fairly safe bet. Like this has also been in flight. Honestly, for July, the cell cap I feel comfortable about, the perf stats I feel comfortable about. I think PubSub, like I don't think there's like so much outstanding with PubSub that July is a risk. I don't know about response caching. We have a design. I think that's just like a capacity thing.
Yeah, I think let's clarify that with audits specifically, external audit response caching.
Should we put this in the meeting notes?
Yeah, I'll add it. And actually, like, if y'all are comfortable giving me whatever permissions on the repo I need to create a GitHub project, I'd like to get it reflected onto a roadmap board on GitHub, but I don't think I need like maintainer level for that. I think there is some permissions level that I can.
Okay, we can figure that out offline. Yeah.
Cool.
And can you add the sync annotation stuff too?
Is that on
No,
312 or
13, 312, 13. Yeah.
and I'll find like issues for all of these too for the roadmap board and get that all linked up correctly.
Yeah, and feel free to ask if you can find any of them. All of it should be there, I think.
Not the validating emission policy integration.
Yeah, I don't think that one is there yet.
We don't have an issue for that yet.
Right.
That's fine too. If we don't want to, we can create an issue, or the roadmap boards allow just adding text items too. So either way, cool. Yeah, I wanted to just do this initial, like, kind of think about the big rock items, and then, at another upcoming meeting, we can go through some smaller issues and like milestone tag stuff if folks want to, but I think it's always nice to have like a user facing rough roadmap. You know,
Okay, I think this is a good start. We have 5 minutes left. Can we switch to the sync annotation design?
I mean, Joy can speak to this as well, but I know you have to drop super soon, but the doc is out there. Comments are appreciated. And I think mostly right now it's just, yeah, I don't know if there's much to discuss because I think mostly people haven't seen it, but
Yeah, have we introduced briefly just what the doc's about for people who know or don't know?
So we're thinking right now it's basically just you have to manually pass the config. So we're trying to the timing thing or the thing, and so
Sorry, your audio is dropping out for me. I don't know if it's dropping out for everyone else.
Same, yeah, I was just gonna add in chat.
Okay.
I can speak to this as well. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, sorry to steal the mic. Yeah, so just very briefly, maybe in the last few months, an annotation was introduced on constraint templates in the Gatekeeper library. It specifies what data, when introduced into the Gatekeeper cache, would make that referential template work correctly, right? Like stuff has to be in the cache for things to work correctly. So then this kind of opened up a new space where we're like, oh, maybe we can start to really improve the user experience around the caching of data, which so far was basically like, look at the template, figure out what to cache by reading the rego, probably go do it. And so we do have a part of this doc which talks briefly about an issue that was raised by the guy who wrote the original annotation PR, which was like, tell me if I'm doing this right. And we saw an opportunity to introduce a new resource that would be a primitive that different kinds of experiences, like fully automated ones, shift left ones, different ones, that this new primitive would enable a much more performant, easier to use experience of referential or sync data. So please take a look. We'd love to hear your comments. We've got a couple preliminary comments. Yeah, and be gentle with us. Thank you. Oh, the link is, I think Sartesh posted it. Thanks, Sartesh. And I know you'll also find it in the meeting notes doc. And that's Max's cat. Okay.
I added
that's it for me at least.
Sorry, I added a comment specifically around the replace sync logic to another name. I don't know if I have time here, but I think renaming that, I don't know if it's going to create confusion when it comes to looking at old code, troubleshooting, and also I think we mentioned sync in various places in our docs. So could we maybe create a new name specifically for sync? I suggested was replicate, maybe, I don't know, could be anything really.
Works for me.
That was the only thing I saw. Other than that, I also had questions around, sounds like the near future implementation is are going to deploy the new CR, is that right?
So yeah, so basically like that, there's going to be tools and experiences that will create these CRs, or the CRD obviously would be part of the Gatekeeper project, but that you could potentially have a controller that would create these CRs, or you could potentially have Gator make them at rest based on, like some various inputs, like the templates, maybe the cluster version, so it understands which types are supported, maybe some CRDs, things like that. And so Our hope was to not be extremely prescriptive as in what exact way it would be used, but rather show that we can make this thing and now you can build these other things on top of it. I'm getting kicked out of my room. I'm gonna have to bail. But happy to talk more.
Yeah, let's discuss off asyncly in the doc.
Okay, thanks, Rita.
All right, bye. Great to see everyone.
Oh, you're right. Thank you. Okay.